A 6-month-old paralyzed baby lay still in his crib just like every night. But when his puppy did the unthinkable, what happened next left everyone in awe. Was this a miracle? The house was silent except for the soft hum of the baby monitor. A faint nightlight cast a warm glow over the nursery, where 6-month-old Noah lay still in his crib. His tiny chest rose and fell, his breathing steady, but his legs remained motionless, just as they had for months. No kicking, no wiggling toes, no sign of movement. The doctors had told his parents, Olivia and Ryan, that there was nothing they could do. Noah's paralysis had no clear cause, no cure in sight. Outside the nursery, Olivia sat curled up on the couch, gripping the baby blanket she hadn't washed in weeks. It still smelled like Noah's newborn scent, a reminder of the little boy who once stretched his legs freely and reached for her with eager hands. Tears welled in her eyes as she glanced at Ryan, who sat beside her, staring blankly at the floor. "I don't know how much more I can take," Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible, as if she was afraid to admit it out loud. "I keep thinking, what if this is it? What if he never moves again?" Ryan exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. "We have to keep hoping," he said, but even he sounded unsure. Hope was getting harder to hold on to. At their feet, their golden retriever puppy Milo lifted his head. His ears perked up, his eyes darting between his owners and the nursery door. He had always been drawn to Noah, staying by his crib as if he understood something was wrong. Tonight, though, something was different. Milo's body was tense, his tail still. He wasn't just lying near Noah, he was watching him. Olivia noticed, but brushed it off. "At least he loves Noah," she murmured. I wish love was enough to fix this." But what no one knew was that love was about to do something extraordinary, something that would leave them in disbelief, something that would change their lives forever. The night stretched on, quiet and heavy. Olivia and Ryan remained on the couch, too exhausted to talk, but too restless to sleep. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on them. Every day had become a cycle of doctor visits, research, and prayers that seemed to go unanswered. In the nursery, Noah slept peacefully, unaware of the pain his parents carried. His small hands rested near his chest, fingers curled slightly. His legs, however, remained motionless, just as they had for months. Milo, the golden retriever puppy, lay beside the crib, his warm brown eyes fixed on Noah. He had been like this for weeks, refusing to leave the baby's side. At first, Olivia and Ryan thought it was just instinct, an innocent bond between a puppy and a child. But lately, Milo's behavior had changed. He wasn't just keeping Noah company, he was watching over him, almost as if he was waiting for something. That night, the waiting turned into something else. Milo suddenly stood up, his ears twitching. He paced in small circles near the crib, glancing at Noah, then at the door, then back again. Something was making him restless. His usual calm demeanor had been replaced by something urgent, something Olivia and Ryan didn't yet understand. Then, without warning, Milo placed his front paws on the edge of the crib and let out a low whimper. He nudged the bars with his nose, then looked back toward the door, as if trying to get someone's attention. In the living room, Olivia heard it. She sat up, brow furrowed. "Did you hear that?" she asked, turning to Ryan. He nodded, already pushing himself up from the couch. "Yeah, it sounded like Milo." They both hurried toward the nursery, their hearts pounding, not with fear, but with something else, something they couldn't name yet. When they reached the doorway, they saw Milo standing on his hind legs, pressing his nose against the crib's bars. He let out another soft whimper, his tail wagging ever so slightly. But what caught Olivia's attention wasn't just Milo's behavior, it was Noah. Noah's fingers twitched. It was barely noticeable, just the slightest movement, but Olivia saw it. Her breath caught in her throat. "Ryan," she whispered, gripping his arm, "look at his hand." Ryan's eyes widened. They both froze, watching. And then it happened again, a tiny, delicate movement. Noah's fingers curled and uncurled, as if responding to something unseen. And for the first time in months, Olivia felt something she hadn't dared to feel in a long time. Hope. But this was only the beginning. Olivia's breath hitched as she clutched Ryan's arm tighter, her eyes locked on Noah's tiny hand. The movement was small, barely noticeable, but it was real. For months they had watched their son lie still, doctors telling them the same thing over and over. There was nothing they could do. But now, right in front of them, his fingers twitched again, this time more deliberate, more certain, as if something inside him was waking up. Ryan stepped closer to the crib, his voice barely above a whisper. "Noah?" He reached out, his hands trembling, afraid to hope, but desperate to believe. The baby's eyes remained closed, his breathing steady, his body still, except for that one tiny movement. Milo let out another soft whimper, pressing his head against the crib as if he knew this moment was important. His tail wagged, slow but certain. His presence was unwavering. "Noah, baby, can you hear us?" Olivia knelt beside the crib, brushing her fingers against her son's hand, needing to feel it for herself. Then it happened again. Noah's fingers curled slightly around Olivia's hand. His touch was weak but undeniable. A sharp gasp left her lips as she turned to Ryan, tears already welling in her eyes. "Did you see that?" Ryan nodded, his own eyes wide, his expression torn between shock and overwhelming emotion. "I saw it," he whispered, swallowing hard. "I saw it." For a moment the world around them faded. The months of helplessness, the sleepless nights spent searching for answers, the exhaustion that had become a part of their daily lives. All of it blurred into the background. Right now, all that mattered was that their son, who had been lifeless for so long, was moving. Milo let out a small bark, his excitement growing. He lifted his front paws and gently nudged the crib's bars again, his bright eyes never leaving Noah. It was almost as if he knew there was more to come. And then, just as Olivia was about to call for a doctor, just as Ryan was about to pull out his phone to record the moment, Noah's entire hand lifted, slow, shaky, but with a strength they hadn't seen in months. A sob broke from Olivia's throat as she covered her mouth, unable to believe what she was seeing. Ryan let out a sharp breath, his hands gripping the edge of the crib like he needed to steady himself. Noah's fingers wiggled again, his hand stretching toward Milo, as if he somehow knew the little puppy had been there all along, waiting for him, watching over him, never giving up on him. And then, for the first time in months, Noah's legs twitched. It was barely a movement, just the smallest shift beneath the blanket, but it was real. It was happening. And everything they thought they knew about their son's condition, everything the doctors had told them, none of it mattered anymore. Because against all odds, Noah was fighting his way back. And it had all started with Milo. Going. Noah stirred again, this time letting out a small noise, a tiny whimper that sent a fresh wave of hope crashing over them. His fingers curled, his legs shifted, and then for the first time in what felt like forever, his eyelids fluttered open. His deep brown eyes blinked up at them, filled with a sleepy innocence, unaware of the miracle he was at the center of. And then, as if drawn by something unseen, his gaze drifted toward Milo. The puppy wagged his tail, letting out the happiest little bark. And that was when it happened. Noah, whose arms had remained weak for months, whose doctors had said his body might never regain movement, lifted his hand and reached for Milo. Olivia let out a sob so strong it shook her whole body. Ryan turned away, rubbing his hands over his face as if trying to steady himself. But there was no hiding the tears in his eyes. Noah's tiny fingers brushed against Milo's fur, and the puppy immediately leaned in to the touch, pressing his head against the baby's hand. And just like that, something inside Olivia and Ryan shifted. For the first time in months, they weren't drowning in helplessness. They weren't trapped in the fear of what they might lose. For the first time, they felt something else. They felt hope. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she watched her son's tiny fingers curl into Milo's fur. The warmth of the puppy's coat against his skin, the way Noah held on, weak but determined, was something she had prayed for, something she had dreamed of but never dared to believe would happen. Ryan knelt beside her, his breath unsteady. He reached for Noah's leg, hesitating for a moment, afraid to hope too much. But when his fingers brushed against his son's tiny knee, he felt it, a small but undeniable twitch. His hands trembled as he looked up at Olivia, his voice thick with emotion. "He's moving, Liv? He's really moving?" Noah blinked up at them, his deep brown eyes filled with the same innocence and curiosity they had once known. He wasn't just responding to them. He was reaching, feeling, fighting. He was waking up. Milo let out an excited bark, circling the crib before placing his paws on the bars again, his tail wagging so fast it was a blur. It was as if he understood what was happening, as if he knew he had been waiting for this moment all along. Ryan let out a shaky laugh, wiping his face. How is this even possible? Olivia didn't have an answer. All she knew was that for months they had been drowning in helplessness, trapped in a reality where their son's future felt like it was slipping through their fingers. They had clung to hope, but it had felt impossible. And now, here they were, witnessing something that defied everything they had been told. She leaned forward, brushing her fingers across Noah's cheek. "You're so strong, baby," she whispered. "You're so strong." Noah let out a soft coo. And as if those words reached something deep inside him, his leg shifted again. Not just a twitch this time, a real, undeniable movement. Ryan let out a sharp breath, his hands gripping the crib like he needed to hold on to something to stay grounded. This is a miracle," he whispered, and deep down Olivia knew it was. The days that followed were filled with emotions they hadn't felt in so long: hope, relief, gratitude. Each morning Noah showed a little more movement, his muscles slowly remembering what they had forgotten. His fingers gripped stronger, his legs kicked softly beneath his blanket. His doctors were stunned, calling it an unexplainable recovery, something they had never expected to see. But Olivia and Ryan knew the truth. It wasn't just a medical mystery. It wasn't just luck. It was love. Love that had come in the form of a tiny golden retriever puppy who refused to leave Noah's side. Love that had filled the house, even in its darkest moments. Love that had reminded them that miracles don't always happen in grand, sudden moments. They unfold in the smallest, quietest ways. One tiny twitch, one gentle nudge, one soft paw against the crib. Milo had never stopped believing in Noah, even when the world told them to give up. And somehow, in a way no one could explain, that love had been enough. As Olivia sat in the rocking chair holding Noah in her arms, she looked down at Milo, curled up beside them. She reached out, running her fingers through his soft fur. "You saved him," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. Milo simply let out a soft sigh, nuzzling closer as if he already knew. And in that moment, Olivia realized something. Sometimes miracles don't come in the way we expect. Sometimes they don't come from doctors or medicine or things we can understand. Sometimes miracles come in the form of love. And sometimes they have 4 legs and a wagging tail. No matter what struggles you're facing, no matter how hopeless things may seem, never stop believing in love, in kindness, in the unexpected ways that life can surprise you. Sometimes the smallest gestures, the quietest forms of love, are the ones that bring the biggest miracles. Hold on to hope, because miracles happen in the most unexpected ways.